Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Abbots Address. This is a Bodhidharma doll. A Bodhidharma doll. And Bodhidharma is the figure who brought the Dharma to China from India. And this is a little figurine kind of thing, whatever it is. It looks like one of those little Russian kind of doll things, but there's no other ones inside it. It's just this way. And Hoshi and I were traveling to San Francisco last week. We did a workshop. Yes, we did. Yep. And I saw this at there's a Japanese garden, which is amazing in San Francisco. It's called the Tea Garden, I think it was. And Hoshi had been there, and he took me to go see, and it was really nice. And I saw this there, and I thought, okay, I'd get that. So there, Bodhidharma. Okay, but we do have other things to do to say. But I wanted to show you this because it's fun. All right, but now other fun things. First of all, so Jigen did an amazing job at the recent Toledo TEDx talk. She knocked it out of the park, and she represented amazingly, and she expressed her experiences with Zazen and compassion, and she and I had worked together on her talk, and she did a great job. And she really represented the Sangha beautifully to a lot of folks in Toledo. It's a TED Talk kind of deal, and it's a regional one. And I can't tell you how many people came up to me after that, and her as well, and just expressed resonance and interest and encouragement of many kinds of ways. So I'm really grateful for that. And then Myoho went and gave some guidance to the teachers at her daughter's school, Liao, for an in-service day, how to do some basic Zazen practice, some mindful awareness kind of stuff. And, these kinds of efforts are really important. They're really wonderful. They help a lot. And it's really great for the community. And it's great for everybody. And I want to say that both of these ladies did things the right way. They connected with me, and they're connected to the lineage. And so they have got nice guidance on how to do things and do things in their own voice, in their own way, and this is wonderful. It's a great thing to be able to speak from one's experience and to help others and to share something of the practice that we all enjoy together and benefit so much from. And it's an important part of the work of the life of the community to sort of be public about it at some points for some people in some ways. Which leads me to the question that came up. The question for the abbot, I don't know why I'm holding this up, it just brings me joy, so that's why. The question was something like, I'll paraphrase, oh shit, I'm out at work now. People know that I'm Buddhist. And that was not my plan, and yet now people have figured out that I'm Buddhist, that I go to the Buddhist temple of Toledo, and how do I deal with that? Now if somebody decides to get involved in the, let us say recently the temple was at the Pride Parade, and we went and we had a big banner, Buddhist Temple of Toledo, and you're got your Rakshu on, and you're behind the banner, and you're doing the thing, and representing, and all that, well, you're public now. But that's a conscious choice. You kind of know that going in, And if you're asked to or get yourself in a situation where you're helping other friends with some beginning instruction and assuming you're empowered to do that, well, that's very public. But the question came up like, well, I didn't expect to tell my coworkers, really. But somehow, some way, people figured it out. What do I do? Well, yeah, it's kind of weird, isn't it? And for a lot of the reason why it feels weird, and I was talking with Jigen about this yesterday, I think it was, is that it's perhaps for many of us, it's the first time that we are identifiably and noticeably part of a minority. And that's not always the case, but let's say it is the case for you, for me. Like, for example, me, I'm a crazily educated white guy who grew up in the Midwest in a basically middle class setting. So, well, tons of privilege there, right? Tons of difficulties I never had to push against, for which I'm grateful and concerned, that others that they have this option as well. And so my response to that is to try to wield this whole karmic skin bag and situation as best I can to alleviate as much suffering as possible, including eroding those distinctions and differences, giving everybody as much opportunity as possible. But I'm still an educated white guy. So being a Buddhist publicly is actually, for me anyway, it was the first time that I actually experienced myself as a minority in a kind of a way. And it's, a little odd, right? A little out there to suddenly be a part of a group that a lot of people would look at and say, oh, well, that's other. And maybe they would incorrectly prejudge you and have all kinds of kind of goofy assumptions and ill-informed opinions about what it is that your Buddhism must be or what this is. So how to deal with it? It's it's a really interesting practice, and it's an important one if it comes upon you. The first thing is that Buddhism is not a religion in the same way that the theistic, monotheist traditions are a religion. But it is a religion, I would say. I'm a priest, there's a temple, we do birthing ceremonies and precepts and funerals and weddings and all, there's seasonal celebrations, there are holidays, there's ritual, there's liturgy, there's a long tradition. I mean, to me, it doesn't cut it to simply say it's a philosophy. I mean, I don't know. I don't think that quite catches it. And it's not religious in the exact same way that a lot of your friends are going to think it is. Because if all you've ever known is the Judeo-Christian Islamic kind of experience of religion, then you're going to assume incorrectly that that's what all religions are like. And it's not so. It's really not so. And part of the conflict that most people in those religious traditions feel is that they have truth claims about being right. And so if the Messiah is yet to come, or if Jesus Christ is the Savior, or if Muhammad is the prophet and the seal of the prophets, then these are very, very different, actually inherently irreconcilable narratives. Now, there are lots of folks who transcend that stuff, but your average Joe, so to say, not so much. And so it's a matter of which one is right. And so that's very troubling. And we can see, look at the news. And so someone from that worldview can project that onto Buddhism, and they think, oh, you must have just swapped Moses or Jesus or Muhammad for Buddha, and it's like a kind of a one-to-one swap or something. Which is weird, right? Because that's not really how it is. And it can be a real difficulty trying to communicate to someone who's really enmeshed in a divinely revealed religious traditions worldview that that rubric doesn't map onto this situation. And in fact, you may not be able to actually explain that. So what to do. And also, here's another part, is that a lot of those folks, or some of them anyway, will, they'll be curious, but some of them will be really concerned, depending on their worldview and their religious view. I mean, they can be really, really worried, sincerely and altruistically, but also because they can also feel worried because it confounds their sense of identity. Also, that's also possible, because if you're someone who looks like them, let's say, has a face kind of like theirs, and similar culture and similar age or what have you, and suddenly you do this completely other thing, well, that can be very threatening to that person's identity. And you don't intend it like that. You're not thinking that way. Maybe you're really okay with people doing whatever religious tradition, or deliberately not being involved in any religious tradition they want to. They're fine with that, let's say. But now, if you're doing this Zen practice thing, well, that can mean something in the other person's mind about them. And maybe a lot of that is unconscious. It's not overtly obvious, but it's part of the push you can get. Especially if they respect you, and if they value you, and they see that you're a person of some depth and credibility or what have you, then it can be really threatening, because you're not just some wacko out there and left some crazy place. You're actually a solvent, credible person who does things. That makes it even harder for them to be comfortable sometimes. So it's a very complicated stew, see, because there's actually a lot of levels that the conversation can be happening on at once. There's the surface, which is, why did you do that, or what does that mean, or what do you believe? And then there's the behind, like, what does that mean about me that you do that? So for all of these reasons, it's kind of a losing game to really try to explain everything. I mean, it really doesn't catch traction to do that. It's noble enough to try, and you might get some satisfaction, some sense of ease out of the conversation. But usually what I've found, and this is not always the case, but generally what I find is that the folks who shout out, including myself, that we say something like, I never expected to be Buddhist. It's kind of a surprise to me too. And I found that my experience up to that point had been unsatisfactory, and being open to experience, I encountered the tradition, and I find it incredibly nourishing. In fact, it seems really obvious to me. It seems like everything that's going on there, and the kind of the people and the practices and the teachings and everything, they almost feel as though they're articulating something I already kind of had understood or seen, and something I want to see and understand and articulate more, experience more. So I find it really nourishing, and it's really fulfilling to me. Period. Full stop. Please do not go into some long elucidation about the truth of the Heart Sutra, or you can, don't hold up your Bodhidharma doll. It'll confuse everything. I mean, it's just keep it very simple. Like, this nourishes me. It kind of surprised me too. Unless that's not true for you, then that's fine. But I mean, honestly, for most folks who really end up saying, holy crap, I'm actually a Buddhist who knew that, I mean, it's usually kind of a surprise to themselves. Not always, but like, say, often. And then being really honest. And then also having kind of inside there, let them sense how much you love them and respect them, and you care for them and you value them. and you have no agenda for them, and you respect their choices, and don't understand that people may not say it to you, but they might internally be feeling like it's a this versus that kind of thing. And so at least you can say things like that thwart that as much as possible. But I would leave it at that, honestly. And we definitely are not a proselytizing kind of thing. We don't go running around trying to convert anybody, God help you, or anything like that. I mean, it's one thing to let people know that the temple exists and that people are welcome, and if they ask, then you can say, sure, that kind of thing. But it's not a, excuse me, sir, do you have a moment to talk about Buddha? You don't want to do anything like that. That's just bizarre. That would be bizarre. And the other thing to say is that sometimes people will, because Buddhism is so kind of fringy, even though honestly today it's a hell of a lot less fringy than it was 10 years ago, let alone 20 or 30 years ago. I mean, it's a lot more in the culture today than it was then, but still, they might sincerely be concerned that you have stumbled into your fate and folly, and that this is some kind of a mind control cult, and this is just leading to terribleness. Even if they don't have some theological, some people have a theological worldview that says if you don't cut the pie the same way they do, then you're going to be eternally punished for this one way or the next. But even not that, some people that just don't have those kind of views at all, but they still might be really concerned, because to them, they don't know what this is. Is this like those Mooney people used to be, or what's the deal, And so for that, I find that the best thing to do is to really, you can direct folks to the website, and they can see pictures of normal-ish looking people smiling, and no one's doing a bunch of weird stuff or anything illegal or really trauma-inducing or anything like that. It's just normal people who actually happen to be contemplatives. Yeah, mystics, contemplatives, poets, as well as business leaders and students and everything in between. So normal folk doing normal things that we all do. And then that concern does erode. It usually does, if that's where that's coming from. So I know that if a person tries to hide their practice, there might be some reasons and some kind of extreme circumstances where that might actually be the most compassionate thing to do. If you've got some, I don't know, say you've got a really elderly relative, and for them this would be just so out of the box, and maybe, here's one, so for my grandpa, he served in World War II, and he was in the Pacific Theater, so he had not a lot of love for the Japanese folks. So anything that kind of sniffed of the Japanese culture brought back worlds of pain to him, and trauma, and just, ugh. So there's a whole boatload of stuff there that I don't relate to. That's not my life experience, but it definitely was my grandpa's life experience, and I honor him, and I honor his service and everything, and that's a terrible time. Great suffering and great trauma. So why would I want to go and rub this in grandpa's nose? God help me, of course I wouldn't. No, it'd be terribly uncompassionate, whatever, aggressive, So chill, totally chill, Tell grandpa like I did, I love him, and I did, and I was with him, and that's plenty. Does that make sense? So it's about being gentle and being kind, but also being honest. And in general, as one's Buddhist practice becomes more ripened and mature and less of a novelty, novelty doesn't sustain anything. It's one of the fringe benefits of a new thing, but it doesn't give you serious sustaining power for beyond that phase. So something else has to happen with your practice, and that's a real ownership and merging with and realization of. And gradually, as that happens, it's less of a big deal, you know. I mean, for me, I'm very publicly out as a Buddhist. I mean, I'm an ordained priest. That's part of being an ordained priest, is that it's a very public thing. It's a clerical thing. It's a part of the job description in a way. And I find that it's a kind of a non-issue. I mean, you know, now I'm in an academic setting, so there's some acceptance there, and some people understand diversity, and people understand different worldviews. Educated folks tend to get the fact that not everybody thinks the same way, and that's actually an advantage. That's a good thing, you know. So, but you know, bottom line, it's like, can I do my job? Can I teach the classes I need to teach and play the gigs I need to play? In my case, that kind of stuff. So, a few thoughts on this business about being outed. And it's not something that just happens once. It's something that one has to discern multiple times over time. At least I can remember it being that way. Now I'm so far out that of any kind of closeted relationship to my Buddhism that it's just a non-issue, and I enjoy it, frankly. I have a really good time, and I enjoy my life a lot, actually, and I enjoy my practice a lot, and I'm very secure in my life choices and this kind of stuff. And so if somebody's a little tweaky about it, I tend to I don't tweak them directly, but it's, oh, you know, it's kind of funny. So a few thoughts on that. Happy to have more conversation about this if you would like. It's an interesting topic, and everybody's situation is a little unique, I know. Also share with your Sangha friends. There's lots of stories in common. Now, some announcements. Not much, but some. The Buddhist Studies class is happening. Again, now we're firmly in Ongo, and so what that means is every Sunday at 9:30 we have our studies class. Please come and be a part of things. This Ongo, rather than a ton of separate day-long things, we really have compressed a lot of the teaching into that Sunday morning class. So the hope and expectation is we'll see you there. Open to everybody. It can be your first day at the temple ever. Just come on in. It's totally cool. And then this particular Sunday coming up, we've got an orientation to Zen Buddhism and to the temple at 2 o'clock. And so that's designed for new folks to come and have kind of a nice entry point into the community and see what's going on and everything like that. So, okay, there we are, everybody. Thank you for your practice, and keep it clear, keep it real, be gentle.